Welcome.
You're now listening to Dirty Feet.
Bonjour, oui, vous êtes sur les ondes des pieds sales, aka
Dirty Feet podcast on No More Radio.
And hosted by
Joanie Farran,
JD Papillon,
Allison Burns. Stay tuned, we're going to move you. So happy birthday to the Edgy Women Dance Festival that's turning 20 this year. We are very lucky to be able to talk to the curator, who is also the artistic and general director of Studio 303, Miriam. We've also got on the show today one of the artists presenting work in the festival, Gillian Doko, and we're going to be talking to her as well. This festival is basically a feminist art practices festival, as it's been described in the press material. And this year specifically, there's a mixed theme of arts and sports and gender. And Studio 303 does have a basis in body and performance creation of artwork, and you do workshops, you do shows, you do a lot surrounding that. So as a result, the Edgy Women Festival also has that part of that influence in it. So this is our tie-in to Dirty Feet and our dance and our movement theme this week. And we're really excited to be talking about the Edgy Women Festival. Like I said, it's 20 years old. It's a really interesting festival, and it comes around once a year. And please, Miriam, please tell us a little bit more. Fill in the gaps for me. What have I missed?
Well, I guess this is the first year that the festival has had a theme. And I'd say that, and a lot of people are asking how that came about. And it's also funny because I'm really not interested in sports. In fact, I was so relieved when there was the strike, and because people are available more and they see art more. And anyway, so it's really not something I gravitate towards naturally, but I'd say in the past few years, I've just had a few experiences that really marked me. One was watching a women's boxing match at the Sala Rosa under the chandeliers with the velvet curtains, and I just thought, that's the most exciting show I have seen in a long time. And then I went to a hockey match once as well and went, oh my God, the theatrical production values are incredible. And then just the excitement that I'd say women, and maybe particularly queer women as well. Some of the friends that I have like, sports has been such an important part of their coming of age or their identity or the way that they found a place in the world or strength. Or so it's sort of, I'm really looking at it from an outsider perspective. I think it's also, sports is definitely clearly an arena where our society promotes gender stereotypes that are very passé, so it's a really fun arena to subvert.
Yeah, you mentioned that our culture promotes a rhetorical opposition between art being sensitivity, subculture, femininity, and sports being strength, mainstream, masculinity. So it makes for a really interesting combination with the gender tagged onto that. Mm-hmm. Because it's the Edgy Women Festival, is it really exclusive to women in terms of performers, in terms of audience members, in terms of subject matter?
No, the Edgy Women Festival would never call itself exclusive. It's very inclusive, but definitely the highlight and the history of the festival has been to promote women's voices that we don't hear very often. But it doesn't exclude men. It's true that there aren't many in the programming very often, but it does happen if it's appropriate. This year we do have some transgender artists who are participating in the programming, and they're transgender of various degrees as well. There's Heather Castles, who considers herself transgender, but goes by she and was born a female. There's Chris Gray, who is going to be participating in the colloque, who doesn't mind either word, but certainly passes more clearly as masculine or male. I think we've got Polly Korn, who is going to help out with the lucha match. So, yeah, no, it's very inclusive, and I think that gender stereotypes hurt men as much as they do women, so I certainly hope. I mean, actually, one of the strategies with having the sports theme is to broaden the audience, because for sure it's an experimental festival and with a very niche audience, but I'm really trying to broaden it. And at first I focused really on trying to bridge three worlds that you wouldn't think were as isolated as they are, but there's not actually very much crossover between academics, activists, and artists. And that's something I've always tried to bring together, because I thought that that kind of feminist art festival would be a very obvious shared ground. But it's not that easy. But this year we're trying to broaden even more, and it's fun. We've been having a lot of media, like really mainstream media attention, and I think that just the sports theme in general and putting posters in gyms and arenas and that kind of thing, we'll see if it pays off, but I hope to have a broader audience.
There is a bit of a gender binary that's established with the use of women, but at the same time being a feminist festival.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that the name does conflict with the evolution of our understanding of gender and of gender's place in society?
Yeah, absolutely. I have thought about dropping women, but then edgy on its own is kind of... And honestly, if I'd come up with a better idea, perhaps I would have used it. But now I'm getting a bit attached to it, because I do find that with all this, the genderqueer movement, that now there seems to be almost a new space for saying, actually, no. I would like to underline and highlight women. And, I think that you can do it in an unexclusive way. But I understand that for sure having women in the title can send a message that men aren't welcome. And I do get that question all the time, oh, the skating's only for women, oh. But, the reverse of that is, look at the French language where, if you have 100 men and 1 woman, you say, il.
Could there be a sort of reclaiming of women as an all-inclusive term in a way?
I suppose. I mean, I try not to identify too much. Sometimes I don't even know what I mean, so I try and let things be what they are. But I have always, in the calls for submissions, certainly said all genders are welcome, and I spelled it out, I think, for the edgy hockey as well, that all genders were welcome, because I forget sometimes. For me, I think it's obvious, but then I guess it really isn't at all.
Speaking of that, how do you curate this festival? Is it an open call? Do you seek out specific artists? Mm-hmm. What are the parameters?
Yeah, it hasn't always been the same, but this past year I did invite 3 artists well ahead of time. I have to, for funding purposes, have some names, and I thought it's the 20th anniversary. I want to invite back Antonia Livingston and Marès Boulogne from Brussels, who are 2 artists who I have 303 has a longer history with, and who are really at the top of my edgy list. And then Heather Castles, who I had met recently, but who so clearly had, a practice that really blended gender, sports, and art.
I do want to mention that Heather is the image that's circulating for the Edgy Women Festival right now, and it's such a striking photo. It's really... so many people bring it up in conversation. It's really, it gets people interested.
So yeah, I invited those 3 ahead of time, and then there was an open call to round it out. I worked with a committee, and I've done that the past few years, of former artists and people who work at 303 and interns, and whoever wants to be, who has a genuine interest is welcome on the committee. It's really great to have different perspectives. And we had a call, and we were seeking work that was related to the theme, but not always necessarily. Like Julienne's piece was not, about sports in any way, but there's also just that when you put something in a certain context, it reads differently. So we were. Right. It's a mix. You're looking for the work that stands out, that's interesting, but also you're looking for a bit of a variety. What will balance in terms of types and styles and space that is occupied as well when it's site-specific.
The notion of subverting space, subverting the body, and traditional notions of gender is pretty essential in Edgy Women, if I'm not mistaken. Where do you think this is going as like an artistic practice? Do you feel that we've pretty much explored as much of what we can subvert, or do you feel that there are still highways of subverting that we haven't explored?
Oh, I wouldn't know how to define or imagine highways that we haven't explored. I think that it's not necessarily artistic, but the gender queer movement, I think people who identify as gender queer and who really claim that space in between too, who don't say, oh, I've transitioned, but I'm actually both, and who push that and insist on that, I think that is at the forefront of what's exciting in gender exploration, and something that is very, really unfamiliar for most people. But other than that, I think there's always, this is not the first time that someone has explored sports and art and gender, but it's the first time I've seen it happen in Montreal, maybe, or on this kind of a scale. But, as soon as I did have that idea, I noticed that, wow, there's a lot of work that's been done already on that front. But I think when you're looking at your own community, there's always new terrains. And the fact that we're collaborating with a boxing club, that has all kinds of implications, both practical and cultural. And the fact that we're doing something weird in an arena. We really tried to collaborate with NCW, it's one of the companies that puts on women's wrestling in Montreal, and that just didn't work out for logistical reasons, but I was really into that challenge, and on some level we are still collaborating because it's interesting to me that it's two subcultures. I didn't expect that women's wrestling was such a subculture. I thought it would be a little more mainstream. But I went to some matches, and it is really niche, but completely separate from the Edgy Women subculture. And I found that really fascinating. And so we're trying to also find common ground that way. And I'd say that's stuff that's not explored much because they're not easy. They're not easy collaborations. Really, it's pretty risky. I have no idea what the result's going to be. So.
Actually, talking about subcultures like women in sports and subcultures, I was surprised there's not really any roller derby in the festival. Was that an intentional choice? Because there is such a link between roller derby and women in sports.
Yeah, no, it's not intentional at all. It's just those girls are crazy and they have no time because they're constantly training. Yeah, I would have loved to involve roller derby, and I have lots of friends who do it, and Meg Hewings, who's organizing the unruly hockey match. Also, this is the second year we're doing it. Really wanted a kind of face-off. Actually, this is the third year that I've tried to collaborate with roller derby. The first year, it was an artist who came from Minneapolis, Karen Sherman, and she's also another one of the elements that led to the theme this year. And she came and did a residency, and she really wanted to create a dance piece on ice that really spoke to gender. She was specifically looking at hockey and roller derby as two extremes, one that is hyper-sexualized, and the other one that is where your sexuality is annihilated, and so is your gender. You really can't. Anyway, the two costumes of these sports are diametrically opposed. Yeah, it's just really interesting. So she wanted to do a piece that was playing with those two aesthetics and cultures and baggage and all that. But, we could not get... I was like, no problem. I can get you 50 amazing skaters. And they'll be half hockey players and half roller derby, no problem. I've got, such good connections. And then she arrived, and I started to panic because people were like, oh, well, we're training 40 hours a week and we have this many games. And I because what was supposed to be a kind of flash mob style, really impressive art project, we were just panicking and struggling and putting the call out there. And finally we ended up having 8 skaters of varying abilities and levels, and it ended up being something completely different, but really touching, actually. It was or the process was, at least. I'm not sure about the result. Not that many people saw it, but the process was really fabulous. So, yeah, so we tried to have a roller derby hockey face-off as well in this unruly hockey match, but we might be able to get 3 or 4 derby girls. But
okay, as the subject of Dirty Feet is primarily interested in movement in the performing arts, I just wanted to kind of outline that connection for myself and for our audience members. First, evidently, as I said at the beginning, it's the relationship with 303, which, for a little history lesson, began operating in 1989. You joined the team.
I was kind of around in 1990, but
okay.
Yeah. I've been there a long time. I stopped counting.
According to my notes, officially the birth of the festival was, of course, 20 years ago, as we said. So in 1993,
it was 3 dancer choreographers who found it. Paul and I were involved.
Paul Kasky?
He was like maintenance guy / technician / dancing for one of the founders, Martha Carter.
Okay.
And I was doing a bit of exchange work for classes. And then everyone left. And we kind of inherited it. Martha was still around for the first 5 years, but the other 2 founders left within the first year.
Okay. And you've carried the torch along.
Yeah.
And now, since 1995, you are now officially artistic and general director of 303.
Paul went to Halifax.
So there's the connection. There's the understanding. Obviously, there's a connection between gender and between sports and between dance or performing arts. It's all about the body. For somebody coming from a dance perspective or a performance arts perspective, because there's a week of programming that you're putting on, and there's a variation in events and performances. Where would you direct somebody who's interested in movement, in dance, and body work?
Well, I mean, the only place you're going to actually see dance is at Game On, the happening. That's happening at the Blue Cap, but the dancers I know, they almost half of them have a sports practice too, and or at least are active in their bodies. So for that reason, I would say, well, no, come skating. You can actually participate. And then of course the lucha. It's a blend. It's part sport, part art, part stand-up comedy. But it's all improv in the moment. So I think all the events will speak to people interested in dance.
I think I'm reaching to find out if Julien Doko would be an interesting artist to check out if you like dance with the Edgy Women
Absolutely.
Festival.
There will be at the Game On at the Chat Bleu. There are 3 dance performances, and I would say Julien's is the danciest of the 3. There's Antonia Livingston as well, who does her practice is more performative, I'd say, and then Judith de Paul from France, who's using a dancer, but it's also in a very sports representational manner. But yeah, Julienne has a duet.
Hello, Julienne. You may not have noticed, listeners, but Julienne's actually in studio with us as well. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Well, let's start with your artistic parcours. Where do you come from?
Interesting question. I was born in the Republic of Central Africa, and I was raised in France. So I have like 2 identities, let's say. But then I traveled quite a lot, and I lived in the US, in Canada, in Brazil, in Denmark, and I'm back in Canada now, going back to Brazil next year. So, and I've collected like different sides and identities, in all my travels, all my different states in different countries. So.
And it sounds like this is something that's very evident in your work, is that multiple influences and different styles coming out into your personal signature.
Yes, very much so. Because I don't have formal training, right? I just trained, as I lived, as I traveled, as I studied. So my background is, ballet, and then I did jazz dance, and then hip-hop, and then I discovered samba, Afro-Brazilian style, Afro-Cuban, traditional West African from Guinea, and then Afro-contemporary when I was here, and then Saba from Senegal, and then so all of this, is part of, I guess, my style, and my body cannot help but use all of this, all of those influences. So yeah, it's there in my movement, style and signature, let's say.
What attracted you to the Edgy Women Festival as a venue for presenting your work?
Well, the theme, the dichotomy between sports and arts, feminine, masculine, I thought was really, like my piece that I created before, it was really right on, for the theme of the festival, I thought, because it is about dance. It is about the, identity, one's identity, and also the body as an independent entity. So identity throughout the body, postulating that the body has an intelligence. What does it go through, to find its deep identity once it's freed from all the social, markers, right? And so I wanted to do that through dance, which is really at the intersection between sports and arts, because it's both a sport, let's not forget it, and it's art, right? And yes, the masculine, feminine side, also because dance would be seen mostly here in this part of the world as feminine. And the thing is that the demographics show that it is more feminine because there are more women in dance in general. That's what I notice when I go to classes, when I go to shows, etc. So that would be like the feminine side, the soft side, But at the same time, it's very physical, right? And it's always about surpassing yourself, pushing your body further and further. And it's also about competition, because in dance, there is competition also. So that would be the masculine side. And in my piece, I put those two sides together. I took my personal experience of the black female body, and I wanted two women looking for their identity throughout the body. So it's a very feminine piece with a musician who is also a woman playing drums, which can be, associated with masculine side. So I really wanted to mix all of that in my piece, and then, presenting it in the venue, Edgy Women venue, for me was really made sense. Yeah.
So we're going to see yourself and another female dancer, and,
yes, we do two.
And one musician.
Exactly, it's a duet, and then a live musician.
Wonderful. And you're performing at Chat Bleu.
Yes.
Great.
Friday and Saturday.
Julienne, I think I saw your piece Corps à Corps in May. You presented it at Joanne Gould's Lien Lieu. I remember because I saw Zab Mabungu coming in this space, and I was like, I'm not in the space, sorry, in the audience to see you, because you've danced with Niata for a year or two. I'm not sure, but I remember Corps à Corps had a lot of musicians on stage, and I remember it being very lively, very grounded. I remember you were doing all this pushing and pulling with your partner on the floor. I remember it very, very vividly. How has it evolved since? It's been close to a year since you've presented there. How has it changed?
Well, yes, it has changed, because first I presented the piece at the Ouagadougou International Dance Festival in January in Burkina Faso, in Africa. And it was supposed to be the duet, but then turns out I had to present it solo. So it became solo all of a sudden, right? So I had to fight against myself. So, but that also works, right? Because don't we fight, against ourselves, in our head, in our bodies, mind, body. And now I'm going back to the duet version, because originally it was meant as a duet, for the face-off, or, the battle side, the struggle side of the piece. It has evolved. A piece always evolves anyways. So I guess like the beginning and the end are actually different. I don't know if I should tell you how exactly.
Maybe you want to keep some suspense,
Exactly.
That's fine. We accept that.
I'm curious about why you decided to work with Jackie, who's the musician, Jackie Gallo.
Because I saw George Stamos' piece that he made for Montréal Danse. and she was the musician, also composer, and I really like the music.
That's Husk, right?
Yeah, Husk, exactly, which was presented at l'Agora de la Danse in February last year, I think. Also, George was a dancer in Nieta Nieta, so we were colleagues, right? Also, he, of course, told me a lot of great things about Jackie, how professional she is, how creative. And I saw her perform also, and I was like, she's also a great performer, not just musician, but a performer. And a woman, So I was like, okay, I would really like her to be in my piece and compose and drum, But then what happened for the Jésus, at the Jésus, was that she was not available, so I had to find other musicians. And so initially I was supposed to have only one musician on stage.
There was not one musician.
No, there were
many.
Four. A trumpet and a big, drum set and a DJ and a composer. So
it takes 4 people to replace her.
So pretty much.
She has a lot of presence.
Exactly. But so now we're back to, having one musician on stage, and which is also great. I mean, it was fun to have 4 people, 4 musicians. It brought a lot of energy, power and everything. But also with Jackie, it's just different, but it's great.
I'm wondering, as a dancer, your relationship to the music, do you ever feel that it's combative?
Well, it's really, I see it as being really complementary. Like, it is possible to dance without music because there is a rhythm that your body creates, you know what I mean? Movement creates rhythm. So it is possible, but of course having music to support the movement, or it can also be exactly like going against the movement. That creates also something, going against. It's really not easy to compose, for a dance piece. And I see that when we work with Jackie, it's like, and she has her point of view because she sees the movement, and she so has her own interpretation, and then she translates that into music. And I just have an idea. I have the movement. I have my story, and then I was like, well, so here it should sound like this and this and this. But she's like, but maybe that it doesn't flow that much, etc. So it's very interesting to work together. And I like to have live music on stage because, of course, it's just like more energy, and it's live, and it's like you have to be there. Both the musicians and the dancer, we have to be present like 100%. So there's a dialogue that is, it's a dialogue basically between music and dance, and it's very important. So yes, so it can be, moving with the music, moving, opposite to the music, and being actually pushed by the music, or trying to press down the music. I mean, there are different relationships that are created with music and movement.
And did you get a lot of time to rehearse in the Blue Cat boxing gym already?
Well, kind of, like last week and yesterday, so we hope to have a bit more time there. But
how do you feel the space influences you as an artist? Do you feel that because it's a particular type of setting for an art performance, and that's kind of the point. Do you feel that so far it's really nourished you in your performance?
Yes, actually, when I saw that the performance was going to be at the Blue Cat boxing club, I was like, yes, I am applying for this, definitely. In a boxing ring on top of it, it's like, yes, this is the essence, this is the spirit of my piece, right? Because it's about really fighting, with another one, against another one, for your identity, for your freedom, for etc. So it's perfect if it's in a boxing ring, which is like a bad box, but then you put dance inside a boxing ring, right? So that's just like, I think
how do you like that little squishy surface?
Yeah,
challenging.
Challenging, especially for my knees. But no, actually, it works. It's fine. And the ropes, it gives something. The ropes, like encircling the space, gives something different. But you saw a rehearsal yesterday. Maybe you can tell us like what you thought. what was the result of dance inside the boxing ring and around also the boxing ring in front of it. I don't know, like you can.
Well, I thought it was really cool, but of course I was watching it with the producer eye, and so I was like, "Now, careful, because there's going to be an installation over here, and I think the audience is not going to be standing there. I think they're going to be standing here," and so it's challenging because you didn't make the piece for there, so you have to really adapt it to not just to the ring, but to the fact you actually don't even know where they're going to be, because they're free to do as they please.
Exactly.
Unlike in a theater setting. So, but I think that's when it's going to become really alive, right?
Yeah, it is a challenge. It's true, because I'm used to making a piece in the traditional setting, set up like a theater. I'm on stage, and then you're the kind audience who is sitting and you're watching, and you don't say a word, and you don't move around, because this is my space, this is your space, right? That's what makes. So this time it's really like exactly, you cannot really just stick to that, and it's true. It's a challenge, but also I would say that naturally, as a performer, of course, I always dance. I always make a connection with the audience. So. I know that I will be drawn anyways to go towards the audience who will be probably around. So if people are around me, I'm just gonna try to do that.
And it's the scary stuff that's always the most fun too.
Exactly. So it's not. I guess we may have some surprises, and we may have to just adapt like on the spot. So that's also a good challenge.
I actually have a logistics question about the performance at the Blue Cat Boxing Gym. Are the punching bags, have they been removed from the space?
No.
How will the audience be set up in the space for
they won't be set up at all.
Okay.
So they'll just have to wander around and find their place. There's one piece, Judith de Paul, that first she thought she wanted some chairs and really frontal, but I think she's given up on that notion, and people will just have to figure out their own way. We will have to remove some bags or lift them for the lucha, because they'll really be in the way. But otherwise, we're trying to do as little as possible to the space, and Phil, the owner, is very attached to that as well. He really doesn't want us to change much, but of course there's some things we have to do.
And it's one of 3 spaces that is hosting the festival this year. So you've got the Chat Bleu, the Blue Cat boxing ring. Yeah. You've got Mont-Royal Arena.
Yeah.
And, of course, 303.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. The festival runs actually from March 2nd to the 10th, so it's already begun. And how did Nuit Blanche go?
Well, have you been to the Belgo on Nuit Blanche?
It's madness.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to go this year, but it's like elbows up,
Yeah. We've kind of figured it out now, but we see almost 2,000 people come through Studio 303, which is more people than we get the rest of the year combined. And this is the first year that Edgy and Nuit Blanche have come together, and it happened. I thought it was going to be in February, and then the date ended up being March, and it was like, okay, I have to integrate it. And actually it worked out really well, because Nuit Blanche is a good audience development opportunity in a sense, because of these 2,000 people, maybe 100 of them are people who know 303 of the festival, and the others don't. So it was a strategic event all nuit long. Really thought about, okay, how can I get these short attention span, wandering around all night, hordes of people to remember where they've been and to connect it with the festival. And we might repeat the formula next year, because I think it worked well. We'll see. So we had a photo booth, an interactive photo booth, where we had sports paraphernalia and wigs and things like that. So it was, it's a silly activity, and people just love to get dressed up and have their photo taken at Nuit Blanche. We uploaded it to our Edgy Women Fest person page, Facebook, and then we put a quote on the photo, and it was either statistics or just des faits divers, that were a little bit provocative to make people think, so that every time they look at the photo, they have to see Edgy Women Festival and a quote. And one of them was, for example, the fact that the Canadian Women's Hockey League annual budget is equivalent to a mediocre male player's salary. Stuff like that is shocking, frankly. So we put some little tidbits like that on it. And then in the studio, we Andrea and Cossette programmed short films around sports and gender. And actually, we took a lot of the films from a sister festival called Désordre in Lille that's organized by the Rencontre Feminist. And they did a sports theme about, last year. And it's really just a coincidence, and there's some funny other coincidences with this new festival. We've programmed some of the same artists, some of the same works, and I'm looking in the future to developing a partnership with them. Anyway, so we had the short films, and then in between the films, during intermission, we kind of projected, basically ads for our other events. So I think we managed to make it strategic and promotional without compromising the artistic integrity. It was great also to have these films that were, again, pretty niche, a lot of them, shown to a really broad public, and I think they were really well received. So
I find that the photo booth, especially as a marketing ploy, and I don't want to make it sound too somber or anything, but it's one of the most interesting social networking approaches I've seen so far, because it really gets people to see and to question the images they see in a way that, people who are not friends with the Edgy Women Fest might not get to through Facebook or Twitter or whatever. How did the idea for that come exactly? Because I find it interesting. During the Nuit Blanche, there was this Le Lait booth where they would also take pictures, but with just going down a slide kind of thing. And there is a nice bit of subverting there of that idea of very mainstream, take a happy picture, but
I'm going to stamp it with something.
Yeah, exactly. That will actually bring people to have to question and pay attention also, really grabbing people's attention rather than just delivering something sweet and tasty.
Yeah, and they don't know until later. It's the next day that they go, oh, look, there's this statement on my photo. Yeah.
What is this?
The photo booth idea, it didn't come from other Nuit Blanche stuff. It was something that actually it was an artist proposed project about 3 years ago. Nicole Mikus at one of the festive Edgy Women events proposed a photo booth with costumes, and it was a very light, project, interactive, meant to for people to have fun at the Edgy Challenge that we used to do. So she proposed that, and then last year, when we have the Nuit Blanche, because it's been getting madder and madder every year, we can't just do what we like, because when we've done artistic events that were more like, I can only have 60 people at a time, or this is my concept. What happened was there was 100 people lined up waiting, and when I've experienced the Nuit Blanche, it's been lineups, and it drives me crazy, and I find that really disrespectful to everyone who's out, really. So I just made it a priority that we had to have an activity that just wasn't, wherever there's always room for other people. Yeah, so there's a photo booth, and the film screening was for that. We did do a photo booth again last year as a fundraising activity, because we were thinking, okay, Nuit Blanche, 2,000 people coming in, why don't we just make this our fundraiser, and sell beer and sell photos. And we did that. And then this year, I wanted to do it again, but I was just so sure that if people just came, they wouldn't remember where they were unless we really pounded them over the head with it. And that statistic that I told you about the Hockey League budget is something that really, really shocked me. And I thought, if it really shocks me, it will really shock other people. And I wanted to find more shocking kind of Harper's Index style statistics, but I didn't have much time to research that stuff. But we came up with about 5 quotes that I hoped would make people think.
That's actually bringing me to a question that I was really wondering about. Edgy Women Fest, it's a festival that, in my opinion, was born out of a need originally. Could you talk to us a bit about the context, like the social context when the festival was created?
It wasn't consciously born out of a need, but that's doesn't mean that the need wasn't there. It probably more reflects my personality. But when I was at Studio 303, actually some women came from New York and did a performance with like a shared program. And Paul, who was more the programmer at the time, I was doing more administration, called it Women from the Edge. For no particular reason, just based on the work of these women. And it happened, and it was a big success. And then they wanted to, it was Karen Bernard from New York, she wanted to come back and do something similar. And Paul just said, this is stupid, me organizing the show called Women from the Edge. You do it, Miriam. And I thought, well, that is just the stupidest name. I can't do that. It reminds me of Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, which had come out not that long before. So that's where Edgy Women came. So, it's really not like this great brainstorming, or it was a little bit accidental, but I know there's always choices involved in accidents as well. But at the same time, parallel to that, I've been organizing Le Boudoir, which was a lesbian cabaret annually at the Lion d'Or, and then Meow Mixes. And unconsciously, I guess Edgy Women became the place where I could do more programming that I was more personally interested in and politically interested in, but that would be supported by Studio 303. And I always felt a bit, not guilty, but a bit, I wasn't sure if it was ethical or allowed, or, I felt, a little uncomfortable with Edgy Women because it wasn't really Studio 303's mandate, but it's the event that caught my heart and imagination, and it's become Studio 303's most popular event for sure. And it's funny because sometimes I feel like I'm running a queer feminist performance space disguised as a dance studio. And it's reflected in the staff there as well, and I've kind of come to terms with that now, and I've spoken about it openly to my board as well of directors, and I've sort of, I don't apologize for it, but in some of the grant applications, as a dance presenter, I'll start, we're not really, we do present dance, but that's not who we are. It's just it seems to be the most convenient category to put us in now. So I'm kind of out about that. And it seems to be really fine with funders, with the board, with the community.
Montreal doesn't have a more mainstream queer festival per se. Like there are some smaller grassroots festivals, but in a more mainstream scene, Edgy Women is pretty much the only one that we could equate with the queer scene. Yeah. So I feel that there is a need for that, at least, so that the queer scene can be represented on a more mainstream level. Mm-hmm. But do you ever feel that it is turning into something that can only be seen as part of the queer scene, or do you feel that feminists who don't identify as queer are still welcome, or would still feel welcome in the festival?
I think everyone feels welcome. I think that the name Edgy Women is not too alienating because it's a little bit saucy, and it kind of implies provocation and sexy and maybe funny, and so I feel like that will attract. And queer is never, it's something that queers know, that they recognize right away, but it's not really stated anywhere. And the fact that I'm always trying to make feminism fun, I think, hopefully opens it up. But I don't know. Edgy Women, it has a small audience, it's not... It might have a bigger audience in terms of repercussions, in terms of media attention and discussions, and people know about it. But the events, they draw about 100 people or so, or sometimes 2, sometimes 3, or Nuit Blanche 2,000, but that's circumstantial, really. But I think that's interesting what you say. I think there's a real lack in Montreal. It's crazy, the gay village. I can't believe that we have such a huge, visible, wealthy gay village, and that there's not a single art gallery or theater or...
Well, it's also a very one-way street in the village, I feel. Literally, because also St. Catherine's one way, but it's very much become a commercial space, first and foremost, and there's no place for anything that's outside of the norm.
But there isn't even commercial art, except in the summer on the street during that festival, but there's
But even then, I feel that it's become such a mainstream gay space that the art that would be presented anyway would be very mainstream art, so there wouldn't be much space for thinking outside of the norms. I don't know, like there are so many spots which are popping up all around the city, just with the Royal Phoenix, which is a queer identified bar more than a gay bar, and this has been popping up all over. So I feel that the village is, like the rest of Montreal, is being reclaimed by the queer community. So I think that the village is becoming a bit obsolete anyway. Like people are finding their own spaces away from that point.
But there are key things that other cities have. Montreal's always a little odd, like we don't have every city has a women's bookstore and a gay and lesbian bookstore. Almost every city, but not Montreal. And then, or the women's sex shop, but that's more about zoning, I think. We don't even have a lesbian bar. It's okay. It's kind of cool, actually. But Montreal's always just like a little different than what goes on elsewhere.
So 20 years is a big landmark. You've made it this far, and there's been a lot of new launches this year with your Nuit Blanche presentation, with the theme for this year. What's next?
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about stopping this after 20 years, and I'm in a bit of, in my personal life, I'm in a place where I'm stopping things. I just recently stopped doing meow mixes, retired from that, and I'm actually planning a sabbatical from Studio 303 in 14-15. But I have to say that this edition of Edgy, and maybe I was putting kind of a last, surge of excitement into it, but it's really been exciting, and I've had an incredible team that's come together out of nowhere. Like, there's just been so much interest in doing it that I definitely will continue for a few more years. I was toying with doing it every 2 years instead, and trying to work something out with the Desordres Festival, or there's another festival in Ljubljana as well called City of Women that is absolutely incredible. And I thought maybe it'd be more fun to partner and do something a little less often, but a little more in partnership. I'm not sure yet. But one thing definitely I want to do is decentralize the festival a bit and have more guest curators or committees, and definitely keep it thematic. That's been really just a great way to focus the programming and think about, I don't know, I really loved doing a theme. So, but I think next year we will probably use more traditional venues just to make our lives easier. But you never know. You never know, because I kind of want to do a food theme one year, and you can't really use a traditional thing.
Yeah, that's going to get messy.
Yeah, that could get messy.
Wonderful. Can you give us a breakdown of what to expect in the festival week?
Yes, so it's actually very much condensed on 4 days, what's left of it. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And Thursday is the first time we're doing a colloquium. I've always, as I was talking about before, wanting to bridge with the academic milieu. And we've done a few last year. We did with UPUP. We did some kind of courses, feminist artist talk and courses that were moderated by Barbe Legault, that were really amazing. And in other years, we've had artists visit classrooms for, and do certain lectures and stuff. But this year, we really wanted to bring it together and do something intense. And we have a colloquium from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. at the Blue Cat Boxing Club. And there will be performative lectures, performances, shared experiences, facilitated discussions, and also a little more straight-up academic presentations. And we've got presenters coming from Brooklyn and Victoria and from Montreal. So that I'm really, really excited about. It's going to be a first. And I think it's really fun to do the colloquium in the boxing club. One of the presentations is going to happen in the workout room, and so people watching can sit on exercise bikes while they watch. I'm excited about that, and we're going to live stream it as well. And then that night is Unruly Hockey, which is organized by Meg Hewings, who's the manager of the Montreal Stars and of the Canadian National Women's Hockey League. And she's really, really passionate about the game and organizes a weekly hockey match called the Lovely Hockey League on Thursday nights, and this time the slot will be unruly hockey. So people can come at 10:30 with skates, a stick, a helmet, and they can participate, anybody in the game. If there's 100 people, it will be a game with 100 players. If there's 12,
You can attend and just watch as well?
Yeah, you can also come and just watch, and the match will begin at 11 p.m. And you can also come watch and bring your skates, and then at midnight there's a 30-minute skate disco party in the arena. So I think that's going to be really exciting. I hope a lot of people come to that. And then Friday and Saturday, it's Game On at the Chableux, which is the happening with many artists that Julienne Docot is participating in. There's about a dozen artists, so I won't name them all. But there'll also be things like one of the performers, Lex Vaughn, is doing something called Jock's Lunch, and she'll just be serving hot dogs and stuff, but in a performative manner. There's going to be a feminist foosball table. I don't know what that's going to look like. We'll see. And then there's a bodybuilder pony ride. How cool is that? It's like pony rides, like a manège, but on bodybuilders. Yes. And then it's almost the same thing both nights, but there is one difference, which is the first night, Coral Short will be doing a 3-hour performance where she's going to beat herself up. It's called Stop Beating Yourself Up, and we'll see how she endures that. We might have a boxing match as well on the Friday. And then on Saturday, Heather Castles is going to do a piece where she beats up a big hunk of clay. And it's a piece that's in a small, dark room, and she's only illuminated by the camera flash. And that's called The Shape of Things to Come, where she beats up a block of clay. Yeah, that's really fun. And then on the Sunday, to close, we are doing Edgy Lucha. And this is something that came about because I invited Marès Boulogne, who is an incredible artist, really one of the most brilliant women I know. I invited her to come and direct the happening because she didn't have a piece that was appropriate for the festival, but I thought I really wanted her to be involved. And she said, yeah, I can do that, sure. And she's also teaching a workshop next week. But then she said, but you don't know this, Miriam, but what I really, really, really desperately want to do is come and wrestle. And I've been running a wrestling club for 2 years in Brussels, and I had no idea. And she is completely crazy about wrestling. Yeah, it's like changed her life. She's mad about it. So she's been here she'll be here for a month in all, and she's just recruiting and going to matches and trying to connect with this world that is very, very different, but that she already has familiarity with, even though I imagine it's different in Brussels. So she wants to get the fighters that we've recruited here to do something that's out of their aesthetic comfort zone. It's a little more 1950s style, retro, and of course, as an experimental theater artist, we'll see what she does. I know Alexis O'Hara is also going to come as Guizot La Nuit and is going to co-MC and learn all the names of all the moves and stuff. And we'll see. This is a really gigantic experiment. So
Guizot is going to be giving running commentary on the wrestling, or?
Guizot's going to try, I think, to give running, but might be helped by Marès, so we'll see how it works out. And then Polly Korn is doing something, I don't know what. Dana McLeod has volunteered to be a ring girl, which means she gets to wear a bikini and hold up signs. So it's going to be pretty kooky.
Oh, it sounds like so much fun. The whole festival sounds like a good time. And a thought-provoking good time.
Yeah, it's funny because, people are really excited about the wrestling. Like, really, really, really excited. Yet, there's wrestling every week. But the edgy crowd didn't know about it. And when I went to those women, the wrestling matches, I was really surprised because I don't know what I expected, but I equated it a bit with roller derby because it's kind of sexy. Okay. It's like sexy sports entertainment, sort of, But you go to roller derby, and granted, there's a really broad audience, but it's hipster, right? Not 100%, but still, it's pretty hipster.
It's part of the audience it attracts.
For sure. But you go to the wrestling, it's not hipster at all. Yet you'd think it has a kind of kitsch crossover appeal or something. And I don't know what to say about it, but I was really surprised. Like, there's a real class difference, It's really flagrant. Yeah, very working class, poor audience. Mostly men, couple of children, couple of women. And I was also surprised, like at roller derby, you have beer, At wrestling, you don't. There's like Pepsi and maybe a hot dog, 99 cents hot. It's really a whole other crowd. And I also thought when I walked in, you see the women wrestlers, and they look a little bit porn starish. They've got hardcore cleavage going on, and they're standing behind tables, and they're selling photographs of themselves and calendars and DVDs of last month's match. And so I expected something a little more porny when they got into the ring. But when they get into the ring, they're just monsters. They're stand-up comedian monsters. And it's just about I'm still thinking about it. I don't know what it's about. And the audience I thought would be a bit more, I suppose, overtly sexist, or, like, bitch. I expected more language, and it's a submissive audience. They're submissive, and they're supportive, and they're really engaged, and it's about something else. There's a kind of release about seeing women out of control. There's a whole theatrics. There's like 5 huge bodyguards protecting the audience from these crazy unleashed women, So it's fascinating. I really encourage people to check out the wrestling scene.
There's also something about wrestling, like the performativity in wrestling, which lends itself so well to the Edgy Women Fest. Just like about the persona that you create, that you give to the public.
Absolutely.
Which is very fascinating.
And the women that do the wrestling, I mean, they're not in it for the money. Like, they are really badly paid, and it's so hard on the body, but they're so passionate about it. Really, really passionate. It's amazing.
Thank you both so much, Miriam and Julienne, for coming in today. I'm really excited to catch some of the Edgy Women Festival this year and in the future, as it sounds like that's going to be possible. Best of luck. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bear in mind that she is a genuine savage and reacts with ferocious instinct.
Well, that's Dirty Feet for this week. Edgy Women Festival. That was a great interview, and it was a long one, so I'm going to keep this short. But I want to remind you about our Facebook page, Dirty Feet Podcast, our Twitter account, Dirty Feet, and the website, of course, where you probably are listening to the show right now, Dirty Feet at No More Radio. You can actually, if you're looking for the URL, it's www.nomoreradio.show/dirty-feet. Another way you can listen to us is to go to iTunes, and you can actually subscribe to the podcast, so it'll download automatically every week, because of course it is a weekly podcast. We go up every Wednesday, and you can listen to all our past episodes as well off iTunes if you prefer that podcast route right on your phone and whatnot. Another update for Dirty Feet. We went to 2 different shows this week, and both opportunities we went with our ticket winners from our giveaways. So thanks everybody who participated on Facebook in our giveaways. And there will be more, I promise you. But our lucky winners, Louise and Greg, got to each see a show via Dirty Feet.
Yeah, it was really fun to have people with us to really bring, especially Louise, who is not a regular dance watcher, so to really bring her and get to see a dance show. I think as dancers, we want to share our passion with more and more people. So, if you hear of any more contests, invite people to participate in. It's usually really easy to just tell them, hey, there's this contest, and you could go see a dance show for free.
And you can check out what we thought of those dance shows by going to thebloodyunderrated.net. We've got a couple reviews up. One for, it was Jose Navas's Miniatures. We talked to him last week about his solo show, and I got to review that one.
and I got to talk about Carte Blanche's Corps de Walk, which was presented at Danse Danse.
We'll talk at you next week. Have a good one.
The Venus Hottentot will show you the ability she has to parade as a European lady.
La tête offre des moyens plus sûrs de distinction parce qu'on a mieux étudié. C'est d'après elle que l'on a toujours classé les nations. Et à cet égard, notre Boshiman offre des différences très remarquables et très singulières. Qu'ils avaient le crâne et le cerveau aussi volumineux. Qu'en un mot, il ne faisait pas exception à cette loi cruelle qui semble avoir condamné à une éternelle infériorité les races à crâne déprimé et comprimé.
Dirty Feet is recorded every week at the Montreal Improv Theatre. Check them out at montrealimprov.com.
Dirty Feet is produced and hosted by
Alison Burns,
JD Papillon,
Joanie Farran.
and distributed by No More Radio.
You can find more about our show at nomoreradio.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Dirty Dirty Feet, and you can find us on Facebook at Dirty Feet Podcast.
Tune in next week for a whole new show.